Welcome back, book lovers, to another episode of Dad and Daughter Reads, a book club podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Dad, and today we will be wrapping up Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. Joining me is your other co-host, my lovely daughter, Miranda. Did Elon Musk send you an email this week asking if you'd like to go to the International Space Station?
No, and if he did, I would tell him, hell no, and I hope he goes to space and blows up. No, that did not happen. I actually was thinking about, like, what would I do if I had the opportunity to go to space, and I don't know if I would go to space. At least not right now. Like, I would want to wait for people to be doing it for, like, at least a decade to know it's safe.
Right.
Because it would be cool to, like, see the Earth from that point. I mean, I love space. I love astronomy and astrology and all that stuff. So, like, it would be cool to see the Earth in that way. But I wouldn't, like, if, like, in the next, like, 5 years. No, definitely not. Because I don't want to blow up.
Well, yeah, the last two rockets they sent up blew up, actually.
Yeah, right.
Nobody was on them, but the last two rockets they did, had a launch here recently, blew up.
Sure, right. Like, I would want to, like, I would have to wait until it's, like, actually very safe, like flying in planes. Anyway, my week. I spent time thinking about that this week. And it was good. It was a fine week. Nothing too special, nothing too exciting, I don't think. Just my normal hanging, working, chilling, going out, having fun. That's about it. How was your week?
My week was good. I watched the new Daredevil Born Again show on Disney Plus. There's only 3 episodes out so far, but it's really good. It picks up right where the Netflix series left off, so it's pretty cool. We had Ava, your little sister's birthday.
Yes.
And I ate the last piece of cake, so I'm in trouble. Now I got to go after we record this to Publix to buy her another piece of cake. Yeah.
That's valid.
Yeah, I agree.
Like that's valid. Why did you eat the last piece of cake?
I didn't know it was for her. It was just in the fridge.
Oh my gosh. What kind of cake was it?
It's from Publix. It was a vanilla cake.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, when I was eating it, like halfway through, I'm like, was this her? I wonder if her mother told her this was hers and I'm eating it. And then when she came home from school today, she was mad. And so I'll go get her another piece of cake.
All right. Well, that's good. At least you're righting your wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was in the wrong. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be pissed too. I'd be livid, actually. All right. How was the birthday party? How was the birthday party? It was good. Yeah. Where was it? What'd you guys do?
Oh, just at the house here. There wasn't none of her friends even came. It was just Nana and Poppy came. Oh, your grandma is coming at the end of the month.
Oh yeah,
days. Yeah. So yeah, and she opened up her presents. Most of them, yeah. And no social media book buzz today either, so she'll be happy about that. Mostly she got clothes. I got her a little book to learn how to draw, and we did a little bit of that together yesterday.
Aw, cute.
So that was fun.
Cute.
So yeah, that was my week. What have you been reading?
What have I read this past week? Well, I finally finished The Witches of El Paso. It did get a little weird at the end. I was a little bit confused. Is another book that jumps around in time, and like every other chapter was the different time periods that he was dealing with. And at first that flowed really well. It felt like every time we picked up each one, it would go back to what was talked about before. Like I didn't feel like things were jumping around, but then towards the end it started kind of jumping around and like jumping over things, and so things kind of weren't really wrapped up. But I also wonder if I would have felt different. Like maybe it would have flowed better if I was able to just sit down and read it in the normal 4 to 5 days it takes me instead of the 2 months I took. Maybe it would have flowed better. The ending part I was reading at work, so like I kind of have to be up and down. So that might have been why, because overall, I mean, it was good. I really liked it. It's a little witchy, magical realism, deals with like generational trauma and all that good stuff. So I liked it. I recommended it. I think I'm going to send it to my mom because it deals with like Mexican, Spanish colonization type deals. So I'm going to send it to her for her to read. I also you had a pretty good reading week. Well, book week. So I also listened to Chelsea Handler's book, You Gone to Be Kidding Me, which is a bit old. I think she wrote it in like 2015 or 2016 or something. But we all know I'm on a Chelsea Handler kick right now. I've also been like listening to her podcast and everything. But it was very good. Talks about her different travel adventures in that one, and mostly about her big Africa trip, which was really fun to listen to. She's just really funny. She like went with her sisters and some friends, and the dynamic of them being like going on safaris, but also just like being like fucked up drunk the whole time was hilarious. But then also I was inspired to go on a safari. I thought that would be really cool. And then so I finished listening to that. It was quick. And then yesterday, because I finished Wishes of El Paso yesterday and I still had time at work, it was a slow day at work because it was like rainy and it was a Monday. So on my break I went to McNally Jackson, which is a New York City like based. It's not, I mean, I guess it's local to New York City, but it's kind of a chain in the city. But I went to McNally. Yeah, bookstore. Okay. So I went to McNally Jackson and I have all these like books on my reading list from TikTok. So I was like I was going to see if they had any of them there. But I also just kind of was like, maybe a book will just call to me because I didn't really know what I was in the mood for. I was like, I'm just going to walk around and see if anything speaks to me. And I walked around and there definitely were a few of the books that were on my list. And I picked them up and I'd read the back and be like, I'm not really feeling this. So I went around. And then I found this one. I have it right here. I can hold it up. Anita Demonte Laughs Last by Xochitl Gonzalez. And I read the back of it and I liked the idea of it. So then I like to just like kind of go to like the middle of the book and maybe read a page or two just to see what the vibe is. Mm-hmm. I was into it. So I was like, you know what? Yes, I'm going to buy this one. But it's so again, I think this one is also another one that kind of jumps back and forth in time. That's really big right now. I feel like that's a trend. I feel like that is a trend in books these days right now. I feel like I've read a lot of books. I feel like I've read a lot of books in the past couple years that do that. So I think this one does that too, or at least it started off in a different time period and now it's in another one because it's like the main character is an art student and it's set in 1998. Her part is she's an art student and she's Puerto Rican from New York City and she's going to Brown. So Ivy League. So she doesn't really like fit in with all the other Ivy Leaguers and like they're all like art history majors and stuff. So there's kind of that dynamic because, it's like a bunch of white people and she's Puerto Rican from New York City. And I think it sounds like maybe came from like lower middle class. So that dynamic, and she's studying art, dealing with those things. But then the other story is that one of the artists, Anita Demonte, I think, she was an artist and was murdered, but her murder was unsolved. And everybody kind of, after a while, I think that was in like 1985. And then everybody kind of after a while just didn't, it was unsolved. They kind of moved on from it. So I think she finds out about this artist and starts looking into her story. And then at the same time starts dating another art student. Then their stories start to kind of be the same. Like the more she digs into Anita's story and death, the more she feels like it's happening in her relationship. So I think it'll be really interesting. I'm very excited. I also was excited to pick up a book by a Latina woman. Not that far in. I'm like 20 pages in. It's got me, but I am hooked within the 20 pages. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is cool. It's also just cool because the dynamic of her being at this university, the Ivy League, she's definitely not part of that world. And she's already got beef with one of the white professors. So I'm into it. so I'm into it. But yeah, so that's what's happening. That's what's happening in my book world. How about you?
So I finished up the Murderbot series, which is very good. It's such a good series. And there's supposed to be 2 more books coming. Unfortunately, the author, Martha Wells, was diagnosed with breast cancer last year. She's still alive, and I hope she's doing well because, not just because, but I would like to read the rest of the series.
So she better not die because you want to read.
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying.
No.
Hopefully she is doing well.
Yeah.
But yes, of course, I do want to read the other 2 books. And I also read another novella by Nnedi Okorafor. called Binti. So that's the author of Death of the Author that we're reading now for the book club. Binti is a sci-fi story about a young Himba girl from Namibia?
Namibia?
Namibia, maybe? Yeah. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. She travels to a university on another planet and her ship is attacked. She survives and she ends up helping to stop an intergalactic war. All of that in like 90 pages. It was good. I liked it. I enjoyed it much better than Death of the Author, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, I just wanted to see, I wanted to read another Okorafor book just to see, because I didn't really care for Death of the Author that much. I mean, it was okay. It's not something I'm going to try to get everybody to read because I don't think it's that great. It's mid, I guess. But anyway, I don't want to get too far into that right now. So I wanted to see, if I would like another of her books. And I did like this one. I would give this one like a 4-star. It was really good. She's a good writer. Her writing is good. So I just wanted to see if I would like another of her books. And that one was good. And I might continue the series. It's actually a 3-part series. They're all novellas, so they're pretty short. So I'll probably continue that series at some point. Maybe not right now, because next up, I need to read the book for my book club at work, which is The Tainted Cup, because I got it at the library. So I got to get it read and get it back to the library.
Sure.
But that's what I've been reading.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds like I like the premise of that, going to another planet, university, intergalactic war. Sounds cool.
Yeah, and there's more about it because I guess it kind of gets into the culture of the Himba people. And I assume that this is what they actually do, is they clean themselves with this red clay and oil. And so she has to collect all of that and take a big bottle of it with her so that she has it. And they put it in their hair and everything. And so, it hits on that. And then this stuff actually ends up killing people who attacked her ship. But anyway, I don't want to get too far into it. I don't want to get, spoilers. So,
yeah.
But it's real short. It's like 90 something pages. It doesn't take long to read. I probably read it in like an hour and a half. Moving on, like I said before, no social media book buzz this week.
No drama.
Not a whole lot. No, nothing going on that I saw anyway. Not that I've actually not been on social media that much this week. I've been pretty busy with other stuff. So that means we can go straight into our book, which is the finale of Death of the Author. Give us a recap on what we talked about last week.
All right, let's do it. So in the last 10 chapters, Zelu's dad dies. He has a funeral in Chicago where there's a big wave of release from the family through dance. Before his death, Zelu is offered by Jack Preston to go up into space, which she was planning to do, but declines after her dad's death. Her uncles force the family into secret, being buried in Nigeria and having a funeral there, which most of them go to, but not Zelu because of her fame. A couple more years go by. She goes to Nigeria with Hugo, Uchenna, and Marcy to visit her dad's grave, despite warnings from her family. The interviews we had in these chapters were from Zelu's mother and Zelu's younger sister, Bola. Zelu's mother talked about how her in secret met and compared Zelu to him. Bola tells a story of them visiting Nigeria and running into Uncle Pius, their crazy great uncle who has crazy things to say. And Bola recounts how Zelu doesn't let him scare her. In the world of rusted robots, Ankara makes it to cross River City, where some Humes are still alive. She tells them of the terrible news, but the leader, Ogachukwu, tells her they need to focus more on the war with the ghosts, and saving the planet can come later, which she does not like, but works her way up in ranks to gain respect.
All right. Thank you for that recap.
You're welcome.
All right. So getting into chapter 39, where we left off. This is a rusted robots chapter. Ijele returns to Ankara while she is in the middle of a gathering of Humes, and Ijele finds out that the Humes are plotting a war against the Nobodies. Still, the Humes don't seem to care about the terrible information, so they're more interested in this war with the Nobodies or the ghosts and don't care about the terrible information of someone coming to destroy the Earth.
Right. Which, isn't that just kind of our society in general as well?
Yeah.
So, just speaking on that.
Chapter 40. So the name of this chapter is Wahaladay. And I looked that up to see what it means, and it means there is trouble in Nigerian.
And certainly there was trouble.
Yeah, if you recall, Zelu was still in Nigeria and they were on the way to the Port Harcourt Airport, and that's when that trouble begins. Zaylu's party is ambushed by would-be kidnappers, and she gets away and runs 35 miles on her Exos to the airport while broadcasting it all to Facebook Live. 35 miles is a long way to run, and she never fell down once with her Exos.
Right. Well, I mean, she was in survival mode. She probably had a bunch of adrenaline going, and
true.
Just when you're forced to survive, your body does crazy things. So that made sense to me.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So that made sense to me.
I'm fine with it too. I was just saying. I don't think someone, though, like if she didn't have her Exo, she may not have been able to do that.
No, absolutely not. No. Which was like the point, is that the Exos were able to make her do that, because then later on, Hugo's like, wow, you did that. That was crazy. And now I have all these other investors and people who don't even need them want them because you were able to run 35 miles.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, definitely. Yeah, her going on Facebook Live was, I guess, a smart thing to do.
Right.
And it ends up being very beneficial for everybody else down the line. So social media, sometimes it's good.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if the good outweighs the bad. Who am I to decide? Chapter 41. Zaylu was picked up at O'Hare by her siblings, where they scold her for going to Nigeria. She finds out her mother had a panic attack during the kidnapping live feed, which, Zaylu also has panic attacks sometimes. And because Zaylu, like you were saying, because she used the Yibo app, which is Mazizi's app, while running from the kidnapping, that's what she used. She told Yibo to make a Facebook Live, so it did it for her. So that gave a boost to Mazizi, and he got a lot more investors as well for his app. So it did end up, like you said, helping out other people there, Mazizi and Hugo.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was interesting. I think it was interesting in this chapter for me because, all her siblings did kind of attack her, even though she just went through this really traumatic event. And like, oh, mom had a panic attack and da-da-da-da. But then when she got to the house and her mom didn't say anything. Her mom didn't attack her, Right. She was like, I'm okay now. Like, it's okay. Like, I'm glad you're safe. And then like made her food, which I thought was nice.
Right.
I was like, okay, there is some growth in the family, not from the siblings. Don't know why. They're still mean.
Yeah, because they're like, look, you ran 35 miles, people had guns, and you were almost killed, but mom had a panic attack.
Right. Yeah.
Like, okay.
But it was nice that mom didn't get going on her and instead was just like, I'm okay. I'm glad you're okay. Yeah. Eat. So that was nice.
Yeah. So, chapter 42, Zaylu and Mazizi get married in this chapter, and I didn't really like the way this played out. Felt like Mazizi was forcing this on Zaylu to me. Zaylu said she wasn't moving to South Africa, and Mazizi said, you'll visit me there sometimes, and that was not a question. It was a statement, and I didn't really like that either. I don't know. I just didn't like the way it was presented. Because to me, it just felt like, because she said she wasn't sure she wanted to do that. And I don't know. But you can talk about that here in a minute. But they planned on just a courthouse wedding. And then Mazizi, which is another thing I didn't really like this either. He does a surprise wedding with just a few of Zaylu's siblings and his sister. So if you're planning on having just a courthouse wedding, and then all of a sudden, I mean, it's not a big extravagant, but I don't know. I don't know if I would like that.
I would agree with you on that point. I wouldn't really like that either. If I said this is what I want and then you surprised me with something that I told you I didn't want, that would kind of piss me off. So I do agree with that. But I think it's interesting that you have this take. I understand it. I understand exactly what you're saying. But I didn't really feel that way when I was reading this chapter because my experience personally, I've always imagined that if I were to ever get married, because I don't really want to get married, but if I were, it would kind of be my partner doing exactly that. Like, Miranda, we've been together for so long and it's just a piece of paper. Like, come on. I always imagine myself being kind of older too, like, because I think she's like 38 at this point, because it's just not something that I would think to do. Because for me, it's like marriage isn't necessarily, I'm not against marriage. I just don't really see myself getting married unless I do end up with somebody for a really long time. And then I also imagine that I would have the same reaction that she had, like immediately just like, no, but then like, well, I guess it does kind of make sense. Like, why wouldn't we? So I kind of thought it was relatable just because marriage is such a social contract. It's just a contract. And if one person needs that, then fine. And it made sense because he did like really need it because it would allow him to get a green card.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
it is so hard to get a green card in this country. Like, it's damn near impossible to get citizenship in this country. It
And
takes
sometimes having a green card doesn't mean anything,
forever.
as we know here lately.
Exactly. It's damn near impossible, especially if you're brown or black. Like, you know, and again, I feel like it's much easier for Europeans and Canadians to get citizenship in this country than it is for black and brown people. So there's that. If we're already been together for this long, we're going to be together for probably ever. I need a green card. Let's just get married. I got that. I understood that. And I think that's also just their way of like compromising, because I think Zelu didn't, if she hadn't wanted done it, then I don't think she wouldn't have done it, because she does a lot of things that he doesn't want her to do and continues to do in these chapters. And eventually he's just kind of like, whatever, do it then. And that's just their relationship. Like, their relationship's pretty unconventional. I do think that Mzizi has some toxic masculine qualities that are perpetuated by the way he was raised. Like, I'll give you that for sure. But I also think that Zelu does need that nudge to do conventional things because she's just not thinking about doing them on her own. So I didn't feel like she was forced into anything. I felt like if she really didn't want to marry him, then she would have just been like, no, I don't want to marry you. And they wouldn't have gotten married. I think she just kind of was like, oh, I guess, you know, it does make sense. Like, why not? Which is honestly exactly how I would react.
Yeah, I can see that too. And I do see the need maybe for him to get married, get the green card. And yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because it's like, if she doesn't really care.
And I'm not saying that he forced her. I just think he kind of, I don't know.
I think that's just how she has to be. Well, I don't know if he persuaded her, because it was pretty short. I think she just at first was like, no. And then she was like, well, I guess you're right. I don't know. So. I just feel like that's exactly what would happen to me. I think if I ever get married, that's exactly how it's going to go down. So I was like, that's crazy. Like, that's exactly how I pictured being proposed to. So, but I understand where you're coming from. Like, I do understand, because I do, like I said, I think Mrs. E definitely has some kind of like toxic masculine traits. But I think that Zelu also does whatever she wants to do and doesn't do whatever she doesn't want to do.
That's true. Moving on to chapter 43, Zelu is suffering from PTSD due to her kidnapping episode, and she decides to face this head on and signs up to shoot a firearm at a shooting range. And for me, I did not understand why this chapter was even in this book at all, because nothing really comes of it. I understand maybe you want to show that she's having PTSD from the kidnapping episode, fine. But this whole chapter just, I mean, nothing came from this. She didn't end up using a gun anywhere else down the line. I mean, I didn't get it.
Yeah, I think it was to show the PTSD, but I also think it was just because she did have this moment when the kidnappers were after her and she picked up the gun and she was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with this gun.
Yeah.
And felt really helpless. So I think it just kind of was like, oh, I need to learn how to defend myself if I'm in situations like these, especially because I'm disabled and a woman. It's just automatically 100 million times more dangerous. So I understood her wanting to find a way to defend herself if anything like that happens in the future. But I do agree with you that it just kind of was like and it was kind of a short little chapter, like a short little random chapter, and then nothing, like she doesn't go back to the shooting range later. She doesn't like, and then there's a guy there and he never comes back into the story.
The woman who runs it never comes back into the story.
Yeah.
It just felt to me like this chapter wasn't needed. It could have, the PTSD could have been maybe brought up in another way and just done with. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. Or and then her going to the shooting range could have just been like a chapter, like, oh, I went to the shooting range and I learned how to shoot a gun so that I could defend myself. We could have moved on.
Right. It could have just been a paragraph.
Yeah. Would agree with that.
Chapter 44, Rusted Robots chapter again. The Humes are creating EMPs to use against the nobodies. You know what an EMP is?
You know what I don't?
Electromagnetic pulse. Basically, it's a bomb that shuts off all electronics and whatnot. A Humed named Koro suspects that Ankara is infected with a ghost and puts an application in Ankara that will alarm if a ghost leaves her body. I don't have much to say about this chapter. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Moving on then. Yeah, okay. Chapter 45, Zaylu contacts Jack Preston about going to space and gets it set up for her to do so. She and Mazizi get into a fight about it, and he leaves. He then comes back and tells her he doesn't want her to go, but she says she does, and he says he won't stop her. So I guess that's another example of she's going to do what she wants to do anyway. So
Yeah, and he's going to let her.
Right.
You know, like he does it with reluctance, but he lets her anyway. And then still, and he does, and that's what I'm saying, like definitely these toxic masculine like qualities. And then he's always throwing little tantrums after too, which bothers me. He's like disappears for like weeks. She doesn't hear from him. Like, grow up. Like, that's ridiculous. Right. So I don't like that about his character. That's for sure. He always does come back. And I guess if they're fine with that, if she's cool with that, then great.
Right.
Not my relationship.
So chapter 46 is a Mazizi interview, and he talks about his womanizing days, and then he has his eyes opened by his cousin, who is transgender, and he talks about how that helped him find Zaylu.
Yes. Short little chapter about Mrs.
Yeah, it was a short chapter, and I don't have much to say about it either.
And also, and I guess, again, another interview that's supposed to be about Zaylu and then is not really about Zaylu.
Right.
Kind of talks about himself the whole time. I mean, like, eventually does wrap its way back to Zaylu, but...
Yeah.
Like, okay, so, Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of Ms. Zizi's character either, so...
Meh. That's all just grunts.
All right, chapter 47, another Rusted Robots chapter. Ijele came to Ankara and said the ghosts will attack soon. Ankara comes up with a plan to set the EMPs off near a network server hub, and they're trying to destroy the storage units there with the EMP. Ijele leaves just as Ankara triggers the EMPs, and this makes Korokoro's alarm on Ankara go off. It lets Korokoro know that she was infected. Ankara was infected by a ghost. Udid, this is the big spider robot from way earlier in the book, shows up in the nick of time to save Ankara, and Udid warns that the Trippers will be here in 3 days because somehow the original countdown got sped up, or, I guess the Trippers, was able to move a little faster or something. So that was not noticed by Ankara. She's the only one that has that countdown going, and, the rest of them don't give a shit about it anyway.
Right, yeah. Well, and she did get really caught up in her plan, too.
Yeah.
So she did kind of just stop paying attention in general. I guess, what we didn't talk about was, because her plan was smart, because it talks earlier in the book about how the ghosts, they can't look at lightning strikes.
Right, yeah.
And then they're they go blue, they flash blue lights for 5 minutes or some crazy shit. So when she said she had a plan and Ijele was like, you can't do that, I was like, oh, I bet she's going to wait for a storm because they're all going to be,
right.
Yeah,
that's
blue
what
lights.
The plan was, to wait for a storm.
Yeah, and that's what.
And then when they get there, the storm comes and all the lightning messes with the ghosts, so it allows them to plant the EMPs.
Right.
And they use the rowboats to get there.
Yeah, I thought that was smart. I was like, yeah, because I'm glad that the lightning came back up too, because there's always a lot of bringing stuff up and then it doesn't come back up. So. Right. Okay. So she's like, I have a plan. I was like, okay, I bet that's what the plan is. So that was cool. And then Ijele leaving last minute was pretty crazy too. I liked Rusted Robots up to this point, and then I stopped liking it after that. And then what is it? The Deus Ex Machina? Isn't that when the comes in last minute, kind of puts everything back together?
Yeah.
That's when it lost me.
God in the machine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow, look at that. God in the machine. This machine is robots. There you go. But we'll get into that later.
All right, chapter 48. Zaylu tells her family about going to space, and instead of them going off on her like they have every other time she has done something crazy, they just don't do it. And this is another thing I don't get. Just out of nowhere, they don't give a crap anymore. They're like, oh, I'm done with it. And don't do anything. Don't yell at her. Don't get onto her. Give her the business like they have been the entire book. So whatever.
Yeah.
But she also finds out at the end of this chapter that she is now pregnant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, there definitely was no build up to them accepting her for the way she was. I will agree with you on that because, you know, like we said, even when she came back from Africa, they dug into her, and now all of a sudden it's like, whatever. That's the only thing that I can think of is that they know that she's always wanted to go to space since she was a kid.
Right.
So it isn't really some random spontaneous thing she's doing out of nowhere. Like, they've always known that this was a dream of hers, and she's already been doing all this other crazy crap. It's just like, oh, I get, yeah. You know what? Fuck it. Go to space. We don't care anymore. And that's what you've always wanted to do. So just do it. But I don't know either.
Yeah, I wonder which is more dangerous, going to Nigeria or going to space?
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's just something she's always wanted to do. So I guess they're just kind of like, she's going to do it. Yeah, I don't know either. There wasn't buildup. I agree. It was kind of random.
Yep. All right, chapter 49, Rusted Robots. The Humes and the Ghosts, they call a truce to deal with the Trippers after learning that the Trippers are going to be there in 3 days. And one of their plans is to send a rocket at them, but that doesn't end up working. Ijele comes back to Ankara after almost being deleted by the other ghosts because they found out about her connection to Ankara, because the reason she left Ankara was to go try to save some of her people in those storage things that they set the EMPs on. And then she told the CB about everything, and then they realized that she had a connection to the Humes. So Ankara and Ijele, they have an idea for Udid to tell a story to OG. OG, if we remember, is the main tripper that had a relationship with Udid. They want Udid to tell a story to OG to persuade them not to destroy the Earth. But Udid says they cannot create a story. They don't have that ability. And Kara begins to write a story, but while this is going on, Udid does contact OG and starts telling stories to OG, but nothing was really working. Then Ankara tells Udid to read the novel that Ankara just wrote, and this ends up stopping OG and the Trippers, and they return their payloads to the sun because they loved this novel that Ankara wrote. And then afterwards, Ankara takes Ijele to the Osun Osogbo Sacred Grove. If you remember, that was when Ankara was on the way to Cross River City. He ran into this grove, and there was a bunch of like old robots there, and there was a caretaker of that area. Anyway, there Ijele takes over one of the abandoned robots because it doesn't have a connection to anything because it's an older robot. So she can't get connected back to the ghosts and possibly deleted. And then she roams the world off by herself.
Yes.
This was a weird, much longer chapter. This is the longest Rusted Robots chapter in the book, I think. A lot happened here, and yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, at first I thought the whole storytelling part that saved the world was a bit anticlimactic because it didn't even like make it to the Earth, and it also felt a bit after school specially to me. Like, I liked the overall message here of like, oh, we have to share stories, and that's what brings us together, and creativity, and, you know, all of that stuff. But it felt a little YA to me. Felt a little young adult. Felt a little like, oh, okay. Like,
the only thing I can think of is that this kind of becomes a theme in this book, that stories help things in this war or in this bad thing that was going to happen. And later on, we'll see that this comes up again. And it kind of all connects maybe back to the title of the book, which has, you know, a couple meanings. Death of the author. When you go back to the essay that was, you know, I talked about in the very first episode on this. So maybe it's just trying to make this connection about stories.
No, yeah, I think definitely that's what it was trying to do. And like I said, I like that overall message because I agree. I think storytelling is one of the most important things we can do in humanity. I think it's really important to tell stories and tell each other stories. Me as like an actor, writer, all those things, like that's really big theme for me in my life. And I agree. And, you know, we need creativity and to connect with other people in that way. So I loved that message of the book. It just felt a little too pretty for me.
Yeah.
Felt a little too pretty, felt a little too anticlimactic, felt a little too young. For me, like I wanted like more, I guess, more like me again. I wanted more war and fighting and
you would think that's what I would want more of, war and fighting. I'm the man here.
I wanted them to like come to Earth, and like I wanted to see what would happen if they did come to Earth, because maybe they did, maybe like the end of the world could have been just like a metaphor for something else. I don't know. I wanted something more exciting like that, I guess is all I'm saying. And then a jelly just like gets in this new robot suit, and Kara's like, okay, well, where are you going? Can I come with you? And she's like, no, we'll probably never see each other again. And then just like walks.
Yeah, that was weird, really weird.
Like, okay, bye, bitch. Like, I was like, damn.
It's like
okay,
you've had this special connection for years, and then it's like, oh, I got me a new body. I'll see ya.
Yeah, so interesting. I was like, I mean, I get it. Like, go roam around the world. I understand you want to learn and be in solitude, but you don't got to cut Ankara off completely.
Right.
You can still check in every now and then. Write a letter. I don't know. that was silly. Yeah. So I was kind of like, what?
I don't know. Moving on. Chapter 50. We're almost done here. So even though she's pregnant, Zelu decides to go to space. And I'm pretty sure that's probably not safe for the baby. But she gets an untested drug from Jack Preston. Well, he takes her to a doctor anyway. He doesn't do it himself. To change her DNA in order to protect her fetus from radiation. And, it's her body, her choice. So whatever she wants to do, I'm not sure I would agree with it. But, So she goes to space, and while she's up there, she does get inspiration for her new novel. And then she says she doesn't want to share it with anybody, so she's not going to write it. And to that, I just say, fuck off then. Fuck off to space, then whatever.
And I was going to say, and you know what? She did fuck off. She fucked off right to space.
Yeah.
She said, I'm leaving this Earth, leaving all these people who want me to write this other book. I have an idea for it, but forget it. They're on Earth and I'm not. So.
Yeah. Well.
That's exactly what she did. Yeah, no, but I don't think going back to her baby and the medication and stuff, the shot or whatever she got to change her DNA, I just don't think she really cared. I don't think she cares too much about this baby right now in this moment. I don't think
probably not right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she found out she was pregnant, and because earlier they had Mrs. Z had talked about like wanting kids, and she was like, she's like, I'm 38, right. I don't want to have kids. She's like, if it happens naturally, then fine, it happens.
And that's what happened.
Right. But I think the fact that like she didn't tell, I think she just kind of was like, okay, like again, if I go up into space and the baby survives, then fine, I'll have the baby. Like, I think that was her mindset.
Right.
Like, I don't think she actually really like, she's like, no, I'm going to put myself first and go to space. And if the baby survives, then great. If not, whatever.
Right. Because there's still no guarantee that that's going to happen just because she took this untested drug either.
Right. Well, and the untested drug could have done some crazy shit to her baby, too. I don't think she cared. I think she cared more about going to space than she did about having this baby, because she didn't really want to have, unless she didn't, I don't know if she wants to have kids or not. She doesn't really necessarily say, I don't think.
And I wonder what would happen if she told Mazizi that she was pregnant.
She knew better not to.
Yeah, she did.
He would have strapped her down and been like, absolutely not. And that would have been a whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to see some of that. That's what we should have had happen. Add another chapter of that.
That would have been a whole nother dramatic thing. And then I really would have hated Mrs. E probably. Because honestly, again, if I were her, I would have done the same thing. I would have been like, fine, give me the shot, because I cannot iffy about having this baby anyway. I'd rather have the opportunity to go to space than have a child. But if the child survives space, then I guess this baby really wants to fucking be born. So I'll let it be born.
If it survives space and the shot that may have changed its DNA.
Exactly. Yeah. Then this baby must really want to be born, and who am I to stop it, I guess, at this point. So I would have done the same thing.
Okay.
If anybody asked, I would have done it.
Alrighty. And it's your body, your choice. So, that's fine. I'm fine with that. It's not something maybe I would have done. I would have thought about it a little more maybe myself, but yeah. All right. The last chapter. The last chapter is a Rusted Robots chapter. And Kara talks about the novel she wrote. And the name of the novel she wrote is called Death of the Author. And the main character is Zelu. It turns out that Zelu is the great-grandmother of Ngozi. And Kara sends this novel to the CB of the ghosts the leader. And CB sends it out to all the nobodies, and everybody loves the story, and it kind of pulls all of the automation together. And I guess they're no longer fighting. And Kara ends up leaving Cross River City. She says she might go try to find Ijele, but Ijele said to fuck off, so don't do that. And she also wants to write more books and maybe start her own library of books she's written. And to that I say, I don't like this ending at all. I don't know if it's almost like a weird time travel sort of thing. Like, who wrote what came first, the chicken or the egg kind of thing, right? Like, the death of the author is written by Ankara about Zelu, and Zelu wrote Rusted Robots about Ankara. So which one came first? Did one actually happen? Did the other not happen? We don't know at this point, and it's very confusing, and I hate it.
Yeah, I'm so confused. Because did Zelu write Rusted Robots, therefore predict the future? Or did Ankara just make that part up? Like, wrote about Zelu and then decided to add in things that were happening now. So I don't get the logistics of it, of how it was Ankara who wrote this book, unless it was like historical fiction. She just like found, she knew all of these things about Zelu and then decided to, add stuff of what was going on in her current time period. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it wasn't explained well.
Right.
And it was weird. Again, I liked the message. I like that, we are creative together, and creativity is what will connect us all, and being creative is being human. Like, I liked all of that. I liked the idea of like, yeah, I wrote this book and it brought people together, and I'm going to keep writing books, and other people. Robots were inspired to maybe also be like, oh, I can be creative too and like write other things. So I liked that. But the actual ending of Ankara being the one who wrote this novel was just weird, and it didn't really make sense to me.
Yeah, me either. I did not like the ending. But I did like I like the thing about creativity and all that stuff. But overall, the ending was just confusing. And
just kind of
I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg.
It just
Rusted
kind of
Robots or Death of the Author. So weird. Go ahead.
It just kind of felt like the author just wanted to put in like a twist.
Yeah.
You know what? What if I just said this and ended it that way? That's kind of what it felt like. Like it'd be cool if I did this, and then, but it was weird.
All right. So, Dad's final assessment. I found myself conflicted about my overall rating for this book. So I went on Goodreads and looked up both 5 stars and 1-star reviews.
Yeah. Well, and I also went looking because I kind of didn't really know how I felt either. And I looked mostly on TikTok, but all the videos that I watched gave it really strong reviews. And so I was like, oh no. Because my review is quite mixed, and both of us have not the best reviews. So which I feel like is kind of well, at least that's what happened with Blood Over Brighthaven.
Yeah,
we're very harsh. We're very critical.
We are
to some other people.
We are.
So that was something that I learned. I was like, wow, yeah.
Well, that's why I went and I wanted to read some bad reviews and some good reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think nowadays people aren't as critical anymore. And I don't know. Anyway, one particular scathing 1-star review described it as, and I'm quoting here, a tone-deaf author, insert wish fulfillment family drama by an Elon Musk / Jeff Bezos apologist with a pointless Wall-E / Hail Mary mashup shoehorned into it that blasts cancel culture while managing to be misogynistic, ableist, transphobic, racist, and then advocates for AI's use in creating books. And I was like, wow, that was all one sentence, one big run-on sentence. And that review got crazier and crazier as it went, because it was almost like the person was reading the book and then going back to write something in the review. Because at one point there was just like a bunch of spaces, and then I hate dolphins, and then more spaces, and then they wrote something else. But that, I just had to add that in here because that was nutso.
No, that is crazy. And I'm glad that you did, because I would like to talk about the AI part of it, because I didn't find that it was advocating for AI and creating books at all, but I can see somebody taking that
Thinking that, yeah.
message, even though I feel like that is clearly wrong, but I could see somebody thinking it anyway, because I felt like the overall message was that the further we get from humanity, the less creative and more divided we become. The further we get away from our humanity, our personal, what it means to be a human and be in community and connected to each other, the more divided we become. And I felt like Ajele being connected to a hume allowed her more access to humanity, which made her more empathetic. And Ankara connected more to humanity as well, living with Ngozi and letting her tap into creativity to share with other bots. So to me, it felt like quite the opposite. It was a message of us connecting back to our human and creative work roots that will ultimately unite us in our experiences. And I think that the author was just being honest about the other themes, the racism, the transphobia, the ableism, the misogyny, and not that she was like being those things or advocating for them. So yeah, weird review, weird take, but I did want to touch on the AI thing because I felt like I could see how somebody would get that idea. Like, oh, robots can create. I was like, no, that's exactly the opposite, I think, of what she was trying to say.
The only part I would agree with that weird is the Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos apologist thing. Yeah, I did not like Jack Preston and all that weirdness.
I agree with that as well.
But the rest of it, ableist, transphobic, racist, I didn't see that. I mean, the author's a Black woman. So I did find out that the author was paralyzed at one point in her life from the waist down, although she can walk now with a cane. So she has dealt with that. So I don't think it was ableism or anything like that. So misogyny, there was plenty of that, but I don't think, because of the Nigerian culture was misogynistic as it is. Azizi was slightly misogynistic himself. But I don't think that just because that's just the way it is. She's just pointing that out. It's not like she's being misogynistic.
She wasn't advocating for it.
Right.
She was just telling the truth of the matter, and how it affected the main character.
Right. So to continue my assessment, so my assessment's not as harsh as that review there. I just wanted to talk about that review because I just thought it was crazy. But I thought the first half of the book was engaging. There were aspects that I liked. The writing is strong. She's a very good writer, Okorafor. Mm-hmm. And I particularly enjoyed the structural approach featuring the 3 distinct perspectives where you had Zulu's narrative, the interview sections, and the Rusted Robot story. That's something else we never did go back on. And we taught in the very first part of the book, the interviewer was that Seth or Josh or whatever, some white guy's name.
Seth, yeah.
So, yeah. And this was like his whole deal this was the best thing he ever did in his life. And we never heard from him again.
That's so true.
Yeah. So anyway, I just thought about that when I read that part about the interview sections. I did like the way the 3 distinct perspectives were, right? But I also recognize that my perspective comes with limitations. So as a white man, I acknowledge there are elements of the Nigerian culture and the immigrant experience that I can't fully relate to, particularly the intense pressure to achieve and conform in order to find acceptance. So I've never had to deal with that. So that's hard for me to relate to it. But that said, I also believe that cultural evolution should include moving beyond patriarchal structures, especially in a family that has 4 daughters. And I think, when I was young, I'm sure I had plenty of misogynistic tendencies. And one of the things that made me change, I think, is having daughters. So if you have 4 daughters in your family, you need to drop that patriarchal shit.
Yeah, tell them.
Anyway, ultimately, I settled on 2.5 stars because for me, a 3-star review means I would recommend it to people. And 2 is I would only recommend it to certain people. So I'm somewhere in the middle. I think the writing, the pacing, the innovative multi-perspective approach, all that was great, but I'm hesitant about who I would recommend this book to. The technical merits are evident, but the overall experience left me with mixed feelings.
Yes. So Miranda's final assessment.
Let's hear it.
I agree. The first half of the book was good and it had my attention. And I really liked the family dynamics and Zelu as to me kind of seemed like an anti-hero. And I liked the pacing and the different stories within a story. I liked Zaylu's character a lot because she was messy and a bit of a black sheep, and her journey included a lot of internal reflection and learning how to be more confident in herself and take ownership of her own story and life. It did get choppy with the time jumps though, and things did get wrapped up in either too pretty of a bow or just in a very confusing way. Not really sure I liked the ending. I had a few unanswered questions, but I did enjoy the overall theme of connecting to yourself, your humanity, and your creativity in order to connect to others. I give it 3 stars. I would recommend it to anybody who's ever felt misunderstood or like the black sheep of the family, or who feels stuck creatively, especially women in their 20s and 30s. It was well written and overall engaging, and I enjoyed the themes, but the ending felt a little rushed and it falls a bit flat for me.
And yeah, I want to talk about also something you mentioned off the podcast we were talking about earlier, that you had read the acknowledgments at the end of the book and kind of saw that this was like, the story had a lot to do with the author herself, I think, right? I think you can see a lot of her in Zaylu. And this may have been just something she wanted to write, you know, based on her life experiences, maybe.
I think it was a little bit of that. I think she just kind of had this idea for a while that she had been sitting on and finally just wrote it down. So I think it was a bit more of like a passion project for her and just something she needed to kind of blah, maybe on paper.
Yeah.
And then just got published.
Right.
So,
and like I said, I read one of her other books and it was really good. I enjoyed it. And
yeah,
I mean, she's won Hugo Awards with some of her other books. And so, I mean, she's a good writer.
And if
I
you
just
go,
think maybe this one was a little bit of a miss, at least for me.
Well, if you go on TikTok, I mean, everybody liked this book. I feel like every video I watched, everyone gave it very high praise. So I was like, uh-oh, I'm so critical.
Yeah, maybe we're just too critical. I don't know. We read too many how to read literature like a professor books.
I guess. I mean, if whoever's listening, let us know. Are we being too critical? Are we being too harsh?
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let us know.
Yeah.
And that's a wrap on Death of the Author. This book took us on a journey full of unexpected turns, deep themes, and plenty to unpack. But now we want to hear from you. What did you think of Death of the Author? Did it challenge your perspective, blow your mind, or leave you with more questions than answers? Let us know on Discord, TikTok, Instagram, and Blue Sky. All our links are in the show notes.
Next up, we're diving into something completely new. Splash. Water Moon.
Big splash.
By Samantha Sotto Yambao. In our next episode, we'll be covering chapters 1 through 15, so be sure to grab your copy and read along with us.
Thanks for listening, and as always, happy reading. We'll catch you next time.
Our intro music is Upbeat Funk, performed by Mikhail Smusev, and our outro music is Lo-Fi Chill, medium version, performed by Bodan Kuzmin. You can find both tracks on pixabay.com. Thanks for joining us, family, and we'll see you next week.